Now, you see, when you go into trial and say, yeah, it was me, but there was someone else who also did it, that's the kind of defense that a third grader uses. Yeah, I mean, I did it, Mom, but so did the other kids. And guess what? It didn't work in third grade, and it's certainly not going to work in a federal court.
When you think of terrorism, you think of Islamic terrorism. Let's be honest with each other. And it's odd because there are a lot of Christian terrorist organizations.
No, there are actually not a lot of Christian terror organizations. You're incorrect, especially when you compare it to the mountain of terrorist organizations that are Islamic. You want to be honest? Did you just say, I want to be honest? You want to have an honest discussion about terror organizations? They're mostly Muslim. This should not come as a newsflash. So we have a purely fabricated attempt by the Young Turks to just throw out some misinformation and a complete distortion of reality. Pure liberal, hyper-left propaganda that has no basis in reality and is actually dangerous and immoral and shameful that they think that they can pawn this off on us. It boggles the mind to think that these people consider themselves to be do-gooders. There's some sort of like Boy Scout complex where they think that they're helping the world by, they're such noble crusaders. They see a problem in the world. The problem is our boss's daddy is a Muslim. Our boss's family is a Muslim. And the orders from the big head buffalo chief is to make excuses and avoid talking about Muslim terror. In fact, let's talk about other forms of terror. Let's employ the old third grade technique of somebody else is doing something wrong. And on top of that, let's try to make it an equivalence. Let's try to pretend that there are Christians committing acts of terror at the same level as Muslims are. That's genius.
Terrorist organizations of all sorts of religions, but Christianity, world's biggest religion, has its terrorists. They don't get so much PR, though.
And the reason that they don't get a lot of PR, my self-hating liberal cunt friend, is they're not in the news because they're not killing people. If they did do that, if a Christian does walk into a school and kill 150 people like they did in Pakistan recently, it would be in the news. And we would talk about it. Now you're about to dive into some deep Google searches. You had some of your scummy liberal friends get into some Google jujitsu. Okay, gotta find terror groups. These pathetic chumps were scrambling around like madmen. So every new bloodbath that the Muslims commit, these jackoffs go to the Google machine and try to hunt down a Christian group that's doing something that they can portray as equivalent. Good luck with that. You know what? Sometimes I wish I could be like Sam Harris. Sometimes I wish I could be calm, just icy cool, even when confronted by buffoonery like this. Just total, raw, uncut stupidity just pulsating from these idiots. How he does that, I don't know. Maybe I need to sit in a cave for 3 years and just think about things. Maybe I need to become a neuroscientist. I don't know. I don't know how he does it. Sam, what is the secret?
Take a seat either in a chair or cross-legged on a cushion.
Okay.
And gradually become aware of the sensations of sitting. Feelings of pressure in your back or legs.
Yes.
Feel your arms at your sides.
I feel it. It's not working, Sam. I gotta be honest.
And perhaps take a few deep breaths.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Sam, they're trying to...
Allow gravity to settle you into your seat.
Yeah. Sam, they're trying to compare Muslim violence to Christian violence. It's the most insane thing ever. You would go crazy on this, Sam. So don't try to pin this on me. This is... Anybody who's rational would freak out about this.
And now gradually become aware of the process of breathing.
Okay. Well, that helps a little bit, but let's hear what he's going to say.
Christianity, world's biggest religion, has its terrorists. They don't get so much PR, though, and we want to correct that. So we're going to be doing a brief overview of just some of the Christian terrorist organizations that are either still operating or have operated over the past few years and have accrued quite a body count of their own.
Oh, you're going to correct that. You are going to correct a social ill. John, you dopey moron. Before you delve into what surely will be a pathetic and embarrassing odyssey into false equivalence, let me just drop a little stat on you from the year 2015. And remember 2015? It's that year you're in right now. In 2015, John, listen, let me correct something for you and let's be honest here. And come close and listen. In 2015, we have had 62 terror attacks. 56 of them were committed by Muslims. That is 90.3%. Now, it gets worse. Okay, that's just the individual terror attacks. In that group, they are including the firecracker that went off next to an NAACP building because a guy wanted to get back at his tax attorney. Okay, that is a terror attack. That killed nobody, did not damage the paint job of the building. So let's look at the more important stat, which is death. How many deaths have been caused this year in terror attacks? 3,013. How many of those were caused by Muslims? 3,003. That is 99.7% caused by Muslims. Mark that down at home, folks, and use it wherever you want. This one's on the house. Go to Wikipedia, look at the terror attacks from this year. Do the math yourself. It's 99.7 committed by Muslims and counting. So please, John, I cannot wait to see how you are going to make this not about Muslims. See, now I'm getting upset again.
Notice where you feel the breath most distinctly, either at the tip of the nose or in the rising and falling of your abdomen.
No, I don't feel any of that, Sam. I am feeling irate because these people don't understand math. They don't understand reality. They want to fabricate a reality that doesn't exist. Just poof it into existence. And they broadcast this to
Just
millions
feel the
of
mere
people.
sensations associated with the breath.
I know, breath. It's all good.
From the beginning of the inhalation,
Yeah.
through the pause between breaths,
Oh my God, Sam, this is...
and follow the exhalation to the end.
I can't do it. I can't be like you.
Simply cover the breath with your awareness.
I'll tell you what I'm aware of. I'm aware that this attempted false equivalence is criminally stupid, morally insane. I want
There's
to
no reason to
slap these
control
people.
the breath. Just allow it to come and go naturally.
Okay. That last breath helped me a little bit. I'm going to admit that.
This information, by the way, I want to credit him, was put together by Alex Henderson of Alternet, who did a great job of briefly summarizing a number of different Christian terrorist organizations. We're going to talk about three.
You want some more great information? Okay, maybe you think that this is some new phenomenon, that 2015 is some aberrant, just outlier of a statistic. No, here are the stats for 2014, my man. 2014, we had 246 terror attacks around the world. 223 of those were Muslim. That is 91%. Here's the death count. 3,919 people were killed in 2014 by terror attacks. 3,626 of them were committed by Muslims. Those were murders by Muslims. That is 92.5% in 2014. That is the exact same trend that you're going to find for the entire previous decade and beyond, and beyond. Whatever subset of dates you want to find, you're going to find similar numbers. But yeah, please tell me about these three terror groups from the Christians. Let's two wrong make a right this bullshit.
The first is the Army of God, a network of violent Christians that has been active since the early 1980s. The Army of God openly promotes killing abortion providers, has included multiple convicted terrorists and murders amongst its ranks, and advocates for the killing of homosexuals. Now, this is especially relevant in the American context because we have people like Eric Rudolph, John Salvi, we have a number of people that have made news, the killer of George Tiller, who were members of that organization.
Ah yes, the Army of God. The Army of God. Frightening, isn't it, folks? Listen to the name of that, an army. People, it's an army. So let's look at where they found the image that they used for the thumbnail for this video. The thumbnail where you have Jesus with a lamb. It's trying to be sarcastic, like, oh, Jesus, real peaceful, right? He's got these three terrorist groups behind him. Right, because there really is no difference between following the peaceful, nonviolent doctrines of a hippie virgin carpenter and following the pronouncements and teachings of a beheading, murderous, warlord, pedophile rapist. Yeah, it's about the same. At the end of the day, it works out to be roughly the same kind of thing. So here's the Wikipedia page where their Google Ninja found that image. Army of God. Let's take a look. It's not a big page, folks. It ain't big. It's one paragraph. And here it is. The actions of this group. consist of the earliest documented incidents of the Army of God being involved with anti-abortion activity occurred in 1982, when most of you were not born. 1982. Nice relevance. 3 men associated with the organization kidnapped Hector Zavalos, an abortion doctor, and his wife, Rosalie Jean, and held them hostage. Oh boy, here we go. Here comes the beheading. The hostages were later released unharmed. The East Coast Division of the Army of God claimed responsibility when 3 men, including Michael Bray, planted bombs at 7 abortion clinics in Maryland, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. in 1985. Again, hyper-relevant to the moment, 30 years ago. And notice that there isn't a list of casualties in this makeshift homemade bombing campaign they went on, because nobody died. Nobody died. Now, am I, as a lifelong atheist, in favor of bombing abortion clinics? Hell no. Of course I'm not. The point is, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And you pointing out the minor wrong of not killing somebody does not equate to the killing of hundreds of thousands of people by Islamic terrorists. Continue. The AOG claimed responsibility for Eric Robert Rudolph's 1997 nail bombing of abortion clinics in Atlanta and Birmingham, as well as an Atlanta lesbian bar. In that attack, 1 person was killed. I'm not in favor of that person being killed. I think we should take action in 1997 about that. Clayton Wagner, claiming to act on the part of the Virginia Dare chapter of the AOG, mailed over 500 letters containing white powder to 280 abortion providers in 2001. The letters claimed that the powder was anthrax, though it was not identified as such. The tactic took advantage of the public's fear of biological warfare after the recent real anthrax attacks. So some guy pours baking soda on letters, sends it to abortion clinics. This is pathetic. The group is also associated with a number of murders of abortion providers. What? Citation needed? Some of these murders claimed association with the AOG. So, association with. In other cases, while the killer expressed no affiliation with the group, the AOG has lionized their acts and taken up their cause. Well, isn't that special? That's it, folks. That's it. Keep in mind, the grand total of anti-abortion doctor killings is 8. That's it. And this group apparently had an affiliation with one of the guys that did one of those killings once in the 1980s. Ironically, you know who else started in 1985? There was another little group. Oddly enough, that other group was called the Army of God. Only you don't know them as the Army of God because they use the Arabic for it, which is Hezbollah. Perhaps you're familiar with Hezbollah. They're a massive terrorist organization that have been wreaking havoc in the Middle East for decades. Suicide bombings, assassinations, flat-out wars. They're known as the Party of Allah. Perhaps, John, if we wanted to be honest here and maybe use a little common sense, let's maybe put into perspective what 2 killings and some baking soda on letters and have a little perspective as to what the Army of God in America is and what the Army of God in Lebanon is. This group is an Islamist militant group and political party based in Lebanon. Hezbollah's parliamentary wing is the Jihad Council. That doesn't sound good. Go through the Wikipedia of Hezbollah if you so desire. It's long and involved. I'll give you little highlights though. From the inception of Hezbollah to the present, the elimination of the State of Israel has been one of Hezbollah's primary goals. Some translations of Hezbollah's 1985 Arabic language manifesto state that, quote, "Our struggle will end only when this entity, Israel, is obliterated." Let's talk about the armed strength. Hezbollah does not reveal its armed strength. Mustafa Alani, security director at the Dubai-based Gulf Research Center, estimated that Hezbollah's armed wing comprises of 1,000 full-time Hezbollah members, along with a further 6,000 to 10,000 volunteers. According to the Iranian Fars news agency, Hezbollah has up to 65,000 fighters. It is often described as more militarily powerful than the Lebanese army. Israeli commander Guy Zur called Hezbollah by far the greatest guerrilla group of the world. Well, hold on, but check out the Army of God in the United States, people. Look, they have a website. Okay, they have a website. It looks like it was made before the internet. That's how bad this website is. It was made in 1985. Okay, the guy broke into his ColecoVision and reorganized it to create the first computer and then made this website. So what do? They have rotating pictures of dead fetuses on the homepage. But, you know, that's easily comparable to Hezbollah possesses the Katyusha 122 rocket, which has a range of 29 kilometers, 18 miles, and carries a 15 kilogram, 33 pound warhead. Hezbollah also possesses about 100 long-range missiles. They include the Iranian-made Fajar 3 and the Fajar 5, the later with a range of 75 kilometers, enabling it to strike the Israeli port of Haifa. I mean, now perhaps you begin to understand the insanity of these young Turks trying to draw a comparison here.
And every time your mind wanders to a thought, gently return it to the breath or to the sensations of sitting,
Sam,
to the
Hezbollah,
feeling of your back against the chair or the cushion,
it's very comfortable, but you have to
the
understand.
feelings of pressure in your legs.
The Army of God in America has 3 people that run a website that is from 1985. Hezbollah has an army of 75,000 people. I don't care how comfortable this cushion is. It's not going to stop that, Sam. Okay, quickly more. According to various reports, Hezbollah is armed with anti-tank guided missiles, namely the Russian-made AT-3 Sagar, AT-4 Spigot, and the AT-5 Spandrel, AT-13. It goes on and on. And yet, I say that, and yet look at what the Army of God in America have. They have animated GIFs. If you zoom in here, folks, Hezbollah is not the only terrorist group that uses technology to wreak havoc. The Army of God in America have used an animated GIF of a fire to spread the passion and to ignite the flames of violence within the anti-abortion community. In fact, they've gone so much, look at this, it's not even animated.
Like, we have a number of people that have made news, the killer of George Tiller, who were members of that organization.
I love it. I love it. They killed George Tiller. I love how they mention George Tiller by name. The Christian terrorist groups, you can name their victims. Literally, you know the names of their victims. I would pay $1 million for somebody to name me the people that died in Yemen this week.
Killed him in church. Went into a church to kill him in front of other people worshiping Jesus, the Prince of Peace. They went in and killed him because that's what Jesus would want you to do.
Yeah.
That's
well,
how
he's so focused on peace that we need to take care of the killing for him.
Yes.
He'll never get around to doing it.
he's too busy helping people. He
Curing
doesn't have
them.
time to kill any.
Yeah. Who is he going to unmaim if we don't maim people?
The guy who wiped out the whole population of the earth with a flood just couldn't handle one doctor in Kansas. He needed.
He needed assistance. He needed a hand like Vader.
And once again, these morons stumble upon an argument that goes against what they're saying. He just said that, this is what Jesus would want these guys to do. The peaceful Jesus. He's acknowledging that Jesus did preach peace. Turn the other cheek. The guy was a shepherd. He hung around with lambs. The guy was the biggest non-alpha male ever. He was a virgin, died a virgin. So if somebody, like these idiots who go against abortion doctors, do something in the name of their twisted version of Christianity, it spits in the face of the doctrines of Christianity. And this is impossible to say with Islam, which has been mentioned to you only about 1 million times. The example of Muhammad leads directly to this. The literal words of Muhammad, the commandments of him, are to behead and kill the infidel. It is the central message of the Quran. Okay, I need Sam. Where is he?
Now, as you focus on the process of breathing, you will also perceive sounds and bodily sensations and emotions and the full flow of your experience.
Yeah, I'm flowing here, Sam.
Simply observe these phenomena as they appear in consciousness and return to the breath.
I'm mad right now, Sam. I'm upset.
See if you can notice the next
Sam.
breath from the moment it arises
Sam, these men are upsetting me.
for its full duration until the moment it subsides.
Okay. And just for the biblical scholars out there, Jesus didn't wipe out the whole earth with a flood. It's sort of broken down into 2 chapters, you could say. The Old Testament and the New Testament might be news to you, considering you both look like self-hating Jews. But yeah, Jesus didn't do that. I mean, look at me. I'm a fucking atheist, and I have to stoop to the intellectual doldrums of having to defend the character, the mythical character of Jesus, and explain to these white horse riding social justice assholes. I have to explain to them the difference between a hippie and a beheader. Are you kidding me? This is why I need to sit on soft cushions and breathe.
Okay, the second is the Eastern Lightning, which, by the way, that's a pretty badass name. Also known as the Church of the Almighty God or the Church of the Gospel's Kingdom. It is a Christianist cult with an end-time apocalyptic focus. This is off in China, by the way. Eastern Lightning believes that the world is coming to an end, and in the meantime, its duty is to slay as many demons as possible. That is not metaphorical. They identify people that they see as being demons and beat or even kill them. And historically, they have killed a number of different people in that context, also Christians.
Interesting, John. Really, really interesting. Eastern Lightning. Amazing to me that you haven't heard of it. Jimmy hasn't heard of it. I haven't. Nobody has heard of Eastern Lightning outside of the northern provinces of China. And do you know why? It's not because we're racist, and it's not because we're Islamophobes. It's because they are doing next to nothing. Do you understand what numbers mean? Eastern Lightning, folks, they are Jesus freaks. They are ridiculous religious people. But we're not really talking about that, are we? We're talking about terrorist activity and why the hell these guys are mentioning this in light of what is happening in the world and the numbers of Muslim attacks we see. Okay, they've been accused of being a cult. Great. The entire thing is a cult. Incidents. Here we go. 1998, members of the church triggered 8 riots, which lasted for 12 days in Hitang. By the way, just let me start here by saying the incidents is a couple paragraphs. I do not have to scroll. When you do not have to scroll on the Wikipedia page of a terrorist group, you should scale your concern over that group accordingly. Unbelievable. A group of riots, okay, they reportedly broke the arms and legs and cut the ears off their victims. Sounds terrible. Nobody dead. Okay, great. 2010, members killed an elementary school student, leaving a lightning-like mark on one of the victim's feet. Okay, the police investigation revealed that the boy was killed because one of his relatives, a member of the church, expressed his desire to quit. Interesting. Now that sounds terrible. The guy, all he wanted to do, he just expressed a desire to quit, and he was killed for it. You could almost call that apostasy. Now hold on, where have I heard about apostasy before? I feel like it's on the tip of my brain, but I can't quite place it. Maybe some meditation will help. Sam?
Begin again in this moment, noticing the next inhalation and the pause between breaths and the next exhalation.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, you know what it is? Apostasy is that thing that the Muslims will kill you for if you do. So if you leave Islam, I'm pretty sure I've heard about that happening a couple times. I mean, here we have it happening once in the north of China by the Christians. So let's keep that in mind. You know, let's keep that in the old memory bank. Here's a quick stat. Out of the 1.7 billion Muslims, 44% are in favor of killing apostates. That is the Pew number. But Devin, that's not the majority. 44% is not the majority. What you're smearing 56%. There's 56% of good Muslims like my father, like my grandfather, that you're just smearing. How could you possibly say that you're concerned about 750 million people wanting to kill you? Fucking unbelievable. It gets worse. Continuing on with the Eastern Lightning, in 2012, the church was found to be behind more than 40 riots caused by spreading doomsday rumors and distributing propaganda material. Then they stabbed an elderly woman and 23 students, not killing them. Here's a nasty one. In 2013, members of the church in Shanxi pulled out the eyes of a boy because his family tried to leave the religion. Again, another apostasy thing. That's 2, y'all. You guys, that's 2. Come on. You're almost going to break double digits here if you keep it at this rate. On May 28, 2014, 6 members of the Eastern Lightning sparked a national outcry when they attacked and killed a woman at a McDonald's restaurant. Okay, that's 3. Okay, well, that is 3 people that you have killed. And I, as an atheist and as a humanist and as somebody who considers himself to be a good moral person, I'm going to go ahead and condemn those 3 acts. And I'm also going to condemn the people that think to highlight these 3 acts and attempt to compare them to Muslim acts. You know what else? It's not just the killing, folks, that this group is doing. They're causing mayhem in so many other ways. Do you want to hear how? I'll explain it. Christian groups also regard the group as a heretical sect that deserves the label cult. I love that, cultists calling somebody else a cult. Due to the radical differences that separate Eastern Lightning teaching from Orthodox Christian doctrine, the group seems to stray from the second Christian doctrine of neighborly love. The group also uses flirty fishing to attract potential converts. Now, you might be asking yourself at home, what is flirty fishing? Oh, well, Guess what? We got the internet, and I'm about to tell you what it is. Flirty fishing is a form of evangelistic religious prostitution practiced from around 1974 to 1987 in the US and other countries by female members of the Children of God, currently known as the Family International. Can I join that group? Okay, so let's just rewind real quick here. They are condemned as a cult because they don't practice the doctrine of neighborly love? I think flirty fishing is pretty neighborly. As in, hey, do you want to join our group? If you say yes, I'll let you be inside of me for a while. I will guide you to ecstasy and orgasm if you say yes. That seems pretty damn neighborly to me.
They identify people that they see as being demons and beat or even kill them. And historically, they have killed a number of different people in that context, also Christians.
However you want to slice it, this group has killed at least 3 people that we know about in China, a country of 1.3 billion people, where killing 3 people is mandatory, I would imagine. I would think that they would not frown upon this. But yeah, 3 people. How can I put this? 3 people is not a lot of people, and does not even come close to what other terrorist groups in China that are Muslim are doing all the time, not to mention around the world. But in China, let's just analyze that. Here's China's Ministry of Public Security. They issued a list of what it considers to be terrorist threats. This is 2003. These include the Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement. I'm guessing that's Islamic. The East Turkestan Liberation Organization, that's Islamic. The World Uyghur Congress, which is Cenk's family, and they're Muslims. And the East Turkestan Information Center. Sounds like more like a customer service center, but no, it is an Islamic terrorist group. The ministry further named 11 individuals as terrorists. All 11 were Muslims. Then it goes on, the Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement, whose aim is to the establishment of a fundamentalist Muslim state to be called East Turkestan, and the conversion of all Chinese people to Islam. Imagine that. Operates through Central Asia and claims responsibility for over 200 acts of terrorism from 1990 to 2001, resulting in at least 162 deaths and 440 injuries. Okay, but let's not forget that woman at McDonald's, folks. The group has a close relationship with Al-Qaeda. Not good. They might have contacts with bin Laden, and more probably with the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan. Incredible. So yeah, it's Muslim terror groups in China are wreaking havoc in that nation and are by far and away the biggest terrorist groups in China, followed by separatists and Maoists and communists. It's not Christians, boys. It ain't Christians. And even if it were, it doesn't absolve the Muslims for what they're doing.
The second one is the Lord's Resistance Army. You might have actually heard of this one thanks to the Kony campaign. Founded by Joseph Kony in Uganda in 1987. It's called for the establishment of a Christian fundamentalist government in Uganda. The LRA, according to Human Rights Watch, has committed thousands of killings and kidnappings. Now,
Thousands?
Yes.
Thousands?
Thousands.
Thousands?
That's a lot.
How many people died in 9/11?
Thousands.
Thousands. Oh, okay.
Thousands.
So that was a Muslim fundamentalist
Yes.
terrorism, and this is Christian fundamental terrorism. And how many did they kill?
Thousands.
Also killed thousands.
Yes.
Still, Muslims are
Not the
worse.
same.
I still think the Muslims are worse. You know why?
Why is that?
Because I don't know any.
I don't know any. I
That's
don't know what
why.
they're like, but
And right here you see the horrific abortion of thought being played out by these people. You can hear the hamsters running on the wheels in their brains, thinking that because the LRA has killed thousands of people and one event in America by Muslims killed thousands of people, that somehow these numbers are equal. Somehow, if we tallied up all of the terror killings from 9/11 till now, we're going to get an even number between Christians and Muslims, which is so fucking wrong. I cannot even begin to explain to this person how stupid he sounds, how disgraceful it is that he wastes our time with this blatant propaganda. If you want to dive into your BS analysis that somehow the Lord's Resistance Army is some Christian crusading force in Central Africa, first of all, let's first recognize the embarrassment that you have avoided all of the Western world aside from the website known as Army of God. I'll grant you that. You've avoided the West. You've dived into a jungle in the deep, dark belly of Uganda to find some sort of false equivalence. A group of what is today 250 people. A group that is not making the news, is not showing up on the terror lists, and have been contained by and large, and not by the Invisible Children campaign, which was complete bullshit. There's a lot of killing in Africa. There's a lot of killing. It's a savage and barbaric place, filled with a huge list of problems. But you are trying to pin this on Christianity, when in actuality, the LRA is not really Christian. Oh, that's no true Scotsman. That's no true Scotsman. You don't want them to be Christian because no, they don't say they're Christian. Listen to the defining ideology of the group. LRA believe in African mysticism and Christian fundamentalism. It claims to be establishing a theocratic state based on the Ten Commandments and local Akoli tradition. You have a tribal group of violent, insane people who follow African mysticism, but hey, guess what? They've thrown in some Christian fundamentalism into this cocktail of religious lunacy. And you're going to try to pin this on the Pope or on Christianity at large. That is repugnantly absurd and just disingenuous, completely dishonest. It's a total failure of thought. Do you know how many Christian groups outside of the LRA are in favor of this group and their actions? None. Zero. Can you comprehend the difference between that and, say, a stat like this? 13.5% of all Muslims in the world are in favor of suicide bombings, saying that the killing of civilians is sometimes justified. That is over 200 million people. Or how about 88% of the Muslim world feels that homosexuality is morally wrong? And we know what the ramifications of that idea are. They're terrible. 46% of the Muslim world feel that women should not be able to divorce her husband. That is preposterous. There isn't a single person in the Christian world that condones or is in support of what the LRA does. The LRA. I mean, it's just laughable.
They seem...
Don't like him. I've met
seem
Cenk's
scary
dad.
and
He
intense.
still seems very scary to me.
Exactly, yes. I'll be in a room with him, but not with my back turned.
No. You watch out. He's going to cut your head off.
Exactly. And the scary thing is...
Oh, cutting heads off. Muslims don't do that. Muslims don't cut off heads. Are you kidding me? We can joke about that. We're joking. We're joking about the beheading of tens of thousands of people during your lifetime due to Islam committed by Muslims happening right now. Hey, Jimmy, why don't you go over to barenakedislam.com/beheadings and have a nice evening. Enjoy your evening, okay? Fire up the tea kettle and put your favorite Earl Grey tea in there. And then I want you to hold that cup with two hands and surf around in the beheading section of Bare Naked Islam. Watch the videos. Look at the pictures. Look at the children playing soccer with the heads. I'd like to see your face, your ratty, weasel-shaped face, as it contorts and grimaces as a dull knife slices open a man's neck and takes his head off. This is not funny. And no, Cenk's dad isn't going to do it. His great-granddad might have done it in the Armenian genocide. Ask him about that.
The scary thing is that we have this thing in this country where it doesn't matter if you're from Africa or if your ancestry's from Africa and you say that you're a Christian, nope, I get to declare that you're a Muslim. For some reason.
Yes.
You can't be a Christian and come from Africa specifically. I'm referring to both Coney and Obama in the same sentence, which is probably going to put me in some trouble.
Who's saying that, John? Nobody's saying that. What a pointless thing to say. There's tons of Christians in Africa. Everybody acknowledges that. The LRA happens to be a retarded mixture of African mysticism and some local tribal culture. This is not Christianity. And that's not the no true Scotsman fallacy. This is a twisted, bizarre perversion of it, the likes of which is so far removed from what the 99.9% of every other Christian are involved with, that it is a complete smokescreen and it is total maniacal bullshit for you to raise them up as an example of Christianity. Not to mention, they could all be cardinals. If you had 250 cardinals who went around the jungles killing with machetes, it would still be 250 Christians compared to hundreds of millions of Islamists and jihadists that populate this earth. Do you see the difference?
So look, this is just 3. There are many, obviously, some much larger than others, some that have committed more acts of terror and murder than others, obviously.
Oh, there are many. John, please make another video, and it will be bitch slapped, very much the way I'm bitch slapping you now. Please list the many more. Please talk to me about the KKK from 100 years ago. I can't wait. Can't wait to go into your time machine of false equivalence. And all the while, Cenk sits off camera, stroking a bald cat with a big, sweaty, hairy smile on his Muslim apologetic face. Can't wait. You are so under the thumb of that buffalo. It is embarrassing. He is dominating you. His obvious agenda has squashed and eradicated whatever integrity you might have had at one point. I'm sure the man mounts you the same way a silverback gorilla will mount another male in the tribe just to establish dominance. Does that happen? Cenk is a silverback gorilla, a bug-eyed, goofy silverback gorilla who seems to have frozen in his maturation process somewhere in between the 5th and the 6th grade. His sense of humor, his mannerisms, his speech pattern is literally trapped in elementary school.
And yet you don't hear about these.
You don't hear about them because they don't happen. 99.7% of the deaths this year, John, are Muslim. Please rewind the tape, listen to that stat I just gave, then slap yourself, then shut the fuck up in that order.
And even when an individual who might associate with one of these groups, like with Army of God, we've had numerous instances of domestic terrorists coming from that organization in America over the past 2 decades, you don't hear about their affiliation with these groups.
Numerous? No, you've had a series of events that you can count on your fingers, assuming that 2 of your fingers were blown off in a war. They've killed 2 people, and they've sent baking soda letters, and they have animated GIFs. The fuck?
And if somebody talks about it in the news, then it's being anti-conservative, it's being biased against conservatives or against Christianity.
Do you see this? Now, you have to be aware here. These people on the Young Turks, these progressive pussies, they have 4 things to say. Okay? Straight up. They have 4 things that they want to say. Each and every day is a new chance for them to get to those 4 things. So one is, conservatives are bad, Republicans are bad. Yes, we all know that. Great. They are the boogeymen. Number 2 is, racism is invented by, owned by, and committed by white people. We are guilty. We feel guilt for our history. And we are pussies who think the white man is a racist monster, the likes of which the world has never seen. That is talking point number 2. Number 3, the United States is a monstrous imperialistic bully, and Iraq. Just get to Iraq. Somehow flush the conversation down a toilet and end up with talking about oil and Iraq. Trust me, it will happen in this conversation. And number 4, seemingly is, fuck Christianity and stop talking about Muslim terror. Let's all get together and sing Kumbaya and pretend that Muslims are not butchering people and spilling blood all around the planet in the most unacceptable, horrific way anybody could ever imagine. It is a nightmare scenario, and it is an enormous civilizational problem facing humanity. But they want to distract, and they want to talk about baking soda and Chinese women fucking people to join their club. That's what they want to talk about. So the point is, they cannot help these 4 things from overlapping onto one another, and it gets all confused and smeared together. He just made a statement against conservatives for no reason. We're not even talking about, we're in the middle of your false equivalence fantasy. Why are we now saying conservatives are fucked up? Where did that come from?
I mean,
That's interesting.
Didn't you do a story? Didn't TYT do a story recently that some of the people we've trained to fight ISIS in Iraq are doing exactly the same kind of? They're cutting people's heads off and putting them on their tanks and stuff like that, right?
They're on our side.
They're on our side.
Yes.
Doing the same thing. Didn't get as much press in America.
No.
You know
Yeah.
why? I don't know any Muslims.
Don't know. Don't trust them.
I don't know how you gonna like them. I don't
Yeah.
trust them. But that.
Right there, you have a bonanza. Okay, right there, you have fuck America, which is the second agenda point. Fuck America, aren't we doing bad shit in the world? Okay? At the end there, you have a little bit of aren't we racist? You know, I don't know any Muslims, so I hate them. And that's the reason why you don't hear about the guys that we've trained over there who are cutting off heads and putting them on tanks. That's the reason. Part of the problem, Jimmy, guy's name is Jimmy. Jimmy, listen to me. Part of the problem with your little anecdote there is the people you're talking about that did that beheading, yeah, the United States helped to train some of these people. Correct. You know who they were? They were Muslims, you fucking dick. Do you hear me, you fucking moronic asshole? The story that you just brought up voluntarily, trying to throw the United States under the bus for no fucking reason and trying to suggest that everybody in the US is racist because we don't know Muslims, just completely backfired because the people in question beheading an idea you were just recently laughing about were Muslims. Christians don't do that because Jesus did not do that. Side note, Jesus never existed for the atheists in the crowd.
It's the whoever the military industrial complex needs to have as a boogeyman.
Yes. Oh God. I mean, I want to take bets. I want to walk into like the MGM Grand in Vegas and have a betting line on whether or not during any given Young Turks video, what are the odds that the word Iraq is going to show up, or the phrase military industrial complex, or the label white. I would put that in a parlay.
Yeah. So we spend way more money fighting something that doesn't have any These guys don't even have a fucking plane. And we're sending soldiers and billions of dollars to fight them in the Middle East. Do they have a jet, John? Does ISIS have a jet?
They physically have jets. I don't know that they can actually operate them.
Okay.
But they did capture some.
Maybe they captured a few jets.
yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. This is.
So, time out, you fucking little goblin. Wait a minute, what? So the murderous hordes of Muslims rolling around Iraq and Syria, they don't have enough jets, so we shouldn't do anything about them? So the human atrocities that they're committing over there, their open defiance of world peace, of international boundaries, of the sovereignty of nations, of human life, of women, the fact that they are operating sex slavery out there, the unthinkable shit that is going on our watch, and we shouldn't do anything because they don't have jets, and you want it to be a fair fight? What are you talking about, you fucking gremlin? Where do they dig this guy up from? Hey, by the way, you know who else doesn't have jets? Eastern Lightning and the Army of God and the LRA. Oh, by the way, the Army of God, the one I was talking about was the American version, the WordPress website version, not Hezbollah, who has an enormous military. But let's not talk about that because that's Muslim and that's jank. And so, where is he? Where is that hairy, bug-eyed, silverback gorilla? Because he might try to mount me if I have to take a pee-pee break and reinforce the fact that I need to be defending. You must defend the Muslim. Okay, it's about equalize. We must reach equilibrium here on the Young Turks. The Young Turks, the show named after a murderous, genocidal Turkish group.
There's nothing more, right? So what we're doing here is showing there's a lot of Christian fundamentalist maniac terrorists.
No, there isn't.
Right? Killing thousands of people, but we don't get the press here because, I don't know, maybe, I'm going to just put a guess that maybe the press here is white and Christian. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is.
Stop the tape. Again, I'm teaching. I'm a teacher today, okay? Let me teach you something. Okay, I don't know everything in this world. I don't know everything. I have a lot to learn, and I am constantly trying to improve myself. But you know what I do know? I know that I'm fucking infinitely smarter than these two buttholes. Okay? Did you hear what he just said? Okay, did you hear how he could not resist the urge to conflate two of his agendas into one statement? Couldn't help it. So there's a massive conspiracy by the media and the press to not report Christian terror groups. Why? Because they're Christian and also because they're white. The white people of America. It's actually three. So because he's referring to America. So it's a fuck you America, fuck you American press. Okay? You know, it's a self-flagellation right there. It's fuck you Christians because you are not fairly advertising all of the Christian terror that goes unreported. It's a scandal. And also you're white. What? You're white? First of all, our press is not white. What kind of country have you looked at the numbers? America is barely white. I went to high school. I was in the minority in Los Angeles in my high school. Okay, so I don't know what you're talking about with that, but beautiful. They're white. Think about that in reference to what they just talked about. They just brought up 3 Christian terrorist groups, in quotes. One of them was from America, the Army of God. One of them was from China, so those are yellow people. And one of them was from Africa, and so those are black people. But the big bad American press didn't report on these white, yellow, and black groups. Why? Because we're white. What the fuck? If that was the case, you would have heard us reporting on the yellow group and the black group, and maybe not reporting on the white group, but that didn't happen. Also, side note, everything that they mentioned did get reported on. Okay, part of the problem is that their Google ninjas run into is that many of these things happened years ago. Okay, you have to go into time machines to talk about shit that Christians have done, which is why Cenk gladly will talk about the Holocaust in an attempt to throw Christians under the bus, as if everybody on the planet hasn't condemned those people for what they did 70 years ago.
Yeah, and look, many people are going to say, well, look, most of the press, probably atheists. That's true, but they still were mostly, I would assume, brought up in Christian households, and you retain some of those biases even if you no longer personally associate with the religion or see yourself as being a member of it.
Kind of like if you were raised a Muslim and your entire family was Muslim and your in-laws were Muslim and your friends were Muslim and your country of origin was Muslim. By the way, 100% Muslim. The most religious country on the planet, Turkey. Yeah, a secular government, which works fine when you have 99.9% Muslim. So yeah, nice projection. Beautiful. Cenk did it the other day. Listen to this shit. Completely unaware, without a hint of sarcasm. He says this.
So Christians, and I'm not saying you do it, and I'm curious what your take on this is, but I hear all the time from defenders of Christianity and from other atheists, but who happen to be born Christian, because we all get wedded to our identities and secretly want to defend it no matter how much we're atheists or agnostics.
And I wonder if it's going to change. Like you had, in the years before 9/11, you did have acts of Islamic terrorism. And I think that it was very easy in the media, even then, before 9/11, to demonize Muslims. You saw a period in Hollywood where they were the villains.
It went
even
from
before
Russians.
9/11.
It went from Russians
exactly.
to because then we became
Islamic
friendly
terrorists.
with Russians.
Yeah.
We got to find another bad guy. We found him.
Let's go back to Russians, I think.
We found him. It was
Yeah.
Russians, but then they were fighting against the Russians. They were our pals
During the 80s,
And then
yeah.
as soon as we became pals with the Russians, turns out we don't fucking like you guys anymore.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to go give us all those weapons back. We don't want to give them back. All right, we'll just kill you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're doing. How do you know they have those weapons? We looked at the receipt.
Yet another pointless rant from this tool. I mean, just trying to throw American foreign policy in the 80s under the bus for no reason whatsoever. Just insane. Yeah, so Islamic terror, guys, it's just a creation of Hollywood. Okay, we needed a bad guy. Oh my God. It's just, talk about looking for a boogeyman. Oh yeah, this is all a big hype, guys. It doesn't exist. Please don't look at the facts. Do not do the research yourself, please. Don't. 99.7%? Please, what's that? What is that? It's Hollywood, guys. It's Hollywood. Because you know who controls Hollywood? It's the Jews. And the Jews, you know who they're against? They're against the Muslims, right? Yeah, you know how this gets portrayed badly in film? Germans and the British. Those two groups are the bad guys in almost every movie ever made. So cry me a fucking river.
Do you see it changing? I mean, I wonder.
No!
There are fewer Christians in America every year than there were the year before. That's a trend that's continuing. It may stop at some point or reverse.
I can't believe
Is there
that.
a threshold at which we can critically look at a person's terrorist organization regardless of religious identification? I wonder. Is it 50%? Is it 20%?
John, we've reached that point right now. I'm an atheist. I have no affiliation with Christianity whatsoever. And I don't have a dog in this race. I am against all religious people. I'm also able to decipher facts and be somewhat aware of the nature of reality around me. So, John, the day you speak of is today. Go look at the statistics. And why don't you, since you do have a platform and 2 million subscribers, how about doing a video about the percentage of terror attacks in 2014? Or pick a year. Pick a year. But how about an honest assessment of who is doing this and at what degree? Please, here's an idea. Here's a video idea for you, John. A comparison of the Army of God in America versus the Army of God, Hezbollah, in Lebanon. Let's see what the differences are there. And let's see if those differences matter.
Like if somebody blew up a building in America and they were hardcore Buddhists or Hindus or Jains or they identified with Shinto, we would identify that as being part of their identity.
Oh my God. John, I'm going to need Sam on this one. John, the Buddhists and Hindus and Jains, oh my, these people don't blow up buildings, which is the entire fucking point. Shinto? Shinto? Go look at the terrorist charts, John. There are no Shinto attacks in America, let alone around the world. Go Google it. The Jains? He has the nerve to bring up the fucking peace-loving Jains? I mean, it's comical. You're not helping anything here. What a waste of life this guy is. The Buddhists? And then you know they're going to bring up the Buddhists attacking the Muslims. Oh, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, the Buddhists did attack the Muslims in Myanmar after the Muslims raped and burned the Buddhists. It was retaliatory in the same way that the Crusades were. The only problem with the Crusades is they have a name. The name Crusades stuck. And people know of the Crusades loosely. They have no idea what it was about, but they think, oh yeah, the Crusades, that was just a bloodthirsty rampaging of killing Muslims for no fucking reason. If only the Muslim conquest of the entire known world through bloodshed and submission by the sword had a name to it. Let's call that the tsunami of death and blood. Is that catchy? Can we say that? How about, let's call it the blood-soaked tsunami of jihadist murder. So yeah, the Crusades, yeah, it was awful. It was also a response to the blood-soaked tsunami of jihadist murder.
Right.
But still,
but not.
Christianity,
Timothy
we do
McVeigh.
not.
Timothy McVeigh never even
Yeah.
went to church.
We even,
as far as I know,
we go beyond.
And exactly, and he didn't. He was not a religious guy, and he did that for political reasons. He's not a Christian. I know you want him to be. Oh my God, I know you want him to be. Oh, I know it, Jimmy. Jimmy, I know, you self-hating cunt. Oh God. Oh, McVeigh, please be a priest in training, please. McVeigh wasn't. Sorry. It was political. Nothing to do with Christianity. You fucking ape.
That. We don't just not identify it. We take the organizations inside of the FBI that are tasked with investigating domestic conservative extremist organizations, and we
disbanded them. Yes.
Preemptively, we
Yeah.
disband it. I don't know if that's going to change, but I feel like we probably should look into it.
So I just want to, I would like to, make the point that people want to, right now there's a big push to say, hey, we need to focus everything on Muslim terrorists, and they're the worst thing in the world. And aren't they worse than Christians? Aren't they worse than Jews? Aren't they worse than Buddhists?
Oh my God. Aren't they worse than Christians, Jews, and Buddhists? Jimmy, you pathetic gremlin. Yes. Yes, Jimmy. They are worse. They are fucking way worse. Okay, I don't know how to put this in a way that will get through your unfunny persona. They are way, way worse, Jimmy. Way, way worse, Jimmy. Jimmy, listen to me. Jimmy, just look into my eyes. Okay, don't break contact with my eyes. The Muslims are way fucking worse. Go Google something.
I had a guy say to me, hey, would you rather have a country run by Buddhists have a nuclear weapon or a country run by Muslims have a nuclear weapon? I go, I don't know. I wouldn't want to have a country run by Christians have a nuclear weapon because they're the only ones who fucking dropped one. Yeah. We dropped 2 of them, by the way, and we didn't need to. But if you asked MacArthur and Eisenhower, they said we didn't even need to drop the first nuclear bomb on Japan, and we did it anyway. Japan was looking for a way to surrender. So,
and we're back to the USA as the bad guy. Oh, Jimmy, why don't you go to Iwo Jima? Okay, go die on a beach in Iwo Jima. Yeah, nice understanding of World War II. What the fuck? The Japanese were not going to surrender, and those bombs saved millions of lives. Incredible understanding of what took place there. And I love how America's the bad guys. It's not the Japanese. It's not the attack at Pearl Harbor, a surprise attack at Pearl Harbor. It's not the Japanese beheading people, prisoners of war, committing war crimes left and right. Nah, not that. It's not what the Russians were doing. Come on, they're not us. How can I self-hate? I'm not a Russian. It's not what the Germans were doing. No, let's not talk about the Holocaust. Let's not talk about the Dresden bombings. Let's not talk about what the English did. Let's not talk about the atrocities and war crimes that were on every side of this thing. No, let's just talk about the big bomb we dropped. As if the firebombing of Tokyo wasn't worse. As if another year-long campaign of island hopping wasn't going to cause more deaths. Nice moral compass you have, you fuck. Nice cherry picking of in the most ghastly event in human history, or at least modern history, the most human carnage and death. And he's going to pinpoint one attack from one nation? Nice. You couldn't be more wrong if you actually tried. If you physically tried to be more wrong, you couldn't. The Japanese were not looking to surrender. The Japanese were looking to die, every last man, for the emperor. Their defining quality was their unwillingness to surrender. That's why we had to drop the second bomb. They refused to surrender after the first one. You have no conception what you're talking about when you talk about World War II. Okay, please stop.
Again, trying to make out that there's another religion that's even worse than there's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs.
And he goes into an unintentional impression of Cenk and Cenk's stupid vocal patterns. There's a it's way worse religion. The one religion commits 99.7% of the deaths we see in terrorism, but it's not worse. Where do you get off saying they're way worse? Now, what you have to understand about that statement is I'm going to make a video of just that statement played over and over again for an hour, just so you have it. I don't know when it might come in handy, but that was the most obnoxious, I want to punch this fucking dork in his face moment I think I've ever seen on the internet. And that's a huge statement. The internet. Do you hear that? Listen to the diction. Listen to this is not comical. This is his voice. This is his voice being recorded in broad daylight while he's getting paid for it. Listen to this.
There's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs. There's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs.
There's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs. Oh my God. How much non-pussy did this guy get in high school? He got nothing. It was a shutout. It was a fucking shutout. That is a perfect game that the women of whatever city he was living in pitched. He got 0 vagina. Why? Why do I say that? I'll tell you why I say that. Because
there's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs.
There's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs. That's why. And yes, there is something worse than the Crusades. You know what it's called? It's called, I believe, if I'm correct, the blood-soaked tsunami of jihadist murder. The blood-soaked tsunami of jihadist death and expansion and imperialistic rape of the entire world. There was that, but nice omission in the history of the world. And the dropping of nuclear bombs, yeah. You want to list the laundry list of war crimes that the Germans committed, or the Italians, or the Japanese, or the Russians, or the US, or every nation that was involved in that conflict. Nobody's getting off this scot-free. Sorry, chump. You, because you're a self-hating idiot, have decided to cherry-pick the one thing that you seem to feel is egregious beyond all measure. Oh, also, it serves to fit part of your agenda, which is create a false equivalence and defend the Muslims.
There's nothing worse than invading Iraq.
And we've hit Iraq, folks. We've hit Iraq. Vegas, call Vegas. Get me Caesar's Palace on line 2 because he dropped the Iraq bomb. So that's going to pay out. I don't know who put money on the fact that he was going to mention Iraq, but he just did.
George Bush said they said, did you ask your father for advice on your Iraq invasion? And he said, I asked my heavenly father. And then he called it a crusade. So here we are, a Christian guy invading another Muslim country, killing hundreds of thousands of people, ordering torture and war crimes to cover it up. But because here's the big difference.
I mean, now he's just having a conniption. Now he's just having a leftist, hyper-liberal freak out. This is a stroke. You're witnessing a stroke. He's talking about torture, killing, no context, no reason. It's just, oh yeah, it was a religious crusade. That's what it was. That's what Colin Powell was highlighting. Colin Powell, the United Nations, and he had the graphs, and the graphs was just a big picture of Jesus. And he's like, you see here Jesus, and Jesus thinks we should go kill these people on a fucking crusade. That is so moronic. This guy's a total dipshit.
Terrorism is the violence of the weak, and we condemn it. War is the violence of the strong, and we glorify it.
Now he is equating the United States government and the United States in general as being a terrorist entity. And the only difference is terrorism is valid, but it's just from the weak. So blowing up innocent people and suicide bombings and the beheadings of people for religious reasons and the killing of children in schools in Pakistan, that's the exact same as the United States and what we did in Iraq, say. And now he's suggesting that what they do is morally equal to what the United States does. And that, sir, is an obnoxious lie, and it's a disgrace that you would even suggest it. That is a bullshit, treasonous, idiotic, ignorant, pathetic thing for you to say. It is totally disgraceful that you would suggest that. The United States and ISIS are not remotely the same.
which is why when I go to the Rose Bowl, I have to watch a fucking B-1 bomber fly over and everybody salute and cheer it. A fucking weapon of death. Everyone, yeah! Okay, it's because would you cheer a jihadist with a pipe bomb?
Yeah, because a B-1 bomber flying over the Rose Bowl is not a fucking jihadist with a pipe bomb, you fucking dick. The reason you're not speaking German right now is because of that B-1 bomber. Or perhaps you look like a Jew. The reason you might not be dead, or your parents would be dead, is because of that B-1 bomber. So yeah, get the fuck up and salute that thing. Holy shit, you self-hating, pathetic chump.
Or a suicide bomber, because that's their war. Terrorism is the war of the weak, and conventional war is the war of the strong. And that's all.
No, it's not. There's no equation here. There's no equation. A suicide bomber and a jihadist is not the same, not even remotely the same as the US military. And that is embarrassing for me to have to explain to an adult. You've embarrassed me. That I had to audibilize that to another human being is embarrassing.
Well, so don't quit pretending we're different. We're not. We kill way more people. We've killed way more people.
Okay, yeah, we're not different than ISIS, folks. We're not different than terrorism. We're not different than jihadists. Do you hear what this man is saying? We kill way more people than who? The people we killed deserve to be killed. If there was collateral damage or an accident, sure, not them. And as many other people have pointed out, killing somebody by mistake, trying to avoid innocent civilian casualties, there's an enormous difference between that and intentionally killing innocent civilians. And you apparently don't have the moral nuance to see that difference. Killing more people, yeah, give ISIS our military and give ISIS 300 years. And let's see where the death counts are. And let's see if any of those deaths are morally justified.
So this bullshit that somehow we're going to be angrier or more scared of Muslims than Christians, fundamentalism is an illness that affects every religion. Yeah. Right now we've got Buddhists. Buddhists are cutting people's heads off, right? We've covered that story. So, anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, you did cover that story. And no, it's not fundamentalism, you jackass. No, sorry, it's not fundamentalism. The fundamentals of Buddhism and Hinduism and Jainism and Christianity do not remotely resemble the fundamentals of Islam, as has been explained time and time again. And that is why the enormous majority, 99.7% this year, of deaths from terror has come from Muslims. And the Buddhists in question had every right to defend themselves, had every right to avenge the death and horrific acts that the Muslims committed towards them. And their defense and retaliation to that Muslim violence had nothing to do with their Buddhism, a point that you might want to consider. Also, in closing, you might want to factor in that Muslims run into trouble. They create conflict and violence in every place they've ever gone. Every other tribe of people, every group, north, south, east, west. Look at what they've done in Africa, Nigeria, the Sudan, you name it. It's a total nightmare. Go east, look at what they're doing in India. Oh, hello, you're Hindu? Okay, well, we're going to kill you. We're going to commit terror attacks against you constantly. Amazing. Same thing in Myanmar, in Bangladesh. They've run into resistance. They've tried to go into Europe in the north. Guess what? It's a goddamn nightmare. They are hated and reviled, and with very good reason. Do not make me list out the terror attacks in Europe. Russia, same thing. The Chechens in Russia have caused a massive problem, and they are Muslim. Yet again, China, we've already discussed it. The entire threat of terrorism in China is Muslim. America, don't get me started. Don't get me started. Oh God, Sam. Sam, you left me there for a long time, and I had forgotten my breathing. I was observing my thoughts, and my thoughts were enraging me. But thank you for trying, and I appreciate that.
And the moment you notice a thought present in the mind, watch what happens to that thought, to the image or bit of language.
There's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs.
Where does it go?
There's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs.